So hi. We finished this film a little while ago, and now Jenna is finishing her sophomore year at Yale, right?
Yes.
Yes.
One more week. And I'm a junior. Woo!
And Fang is finishing her first year at Mount Holyoke.
One more week and I'm a sophomore.
So, but I think the best thing for us to do is to open it up to questions.
Hi, I'm Fang, or as some of you know me as Jenni. This is my second time watching the film, so I'm still a stranger to it, and I think that's sounds a little funny because I'm in it, but when I met Jenna for the first time today, we were really nervous to meet all of you and to see the film together and to see it in front of a crowd, and it was just nerve-wracking. But then I said to her, we have to approach this as spectators, because it's easy to look at your story, to look at your past, to look at your present and judge it and criticize it. And we're both perfectionists, I would say. And so to see some of your roughest years, 15 years, when I was 15 years old, I was not at my best. I admit that. And so when I see myself and see this film, it's emotional, but at the end of it, both times, all I feel is gratitude towards Linda and the crew and the audience and the three lovely young ladies that were in this film for sharing the story and sharing community and sharing something that we don't always want to share.
Hi, my name is Jenna, and I guess to answer your question, when I watch the film, it feels kind of like watching another person, because being 20 years old and looking at your 15-year-old self, it's kind of like watching a little sister almost. It doesn't really feel like yourself. Yeah. I do feel a lot of gratitude for Linda and Katie and Ben and Nelson, though, because I think that they really did represent us in a very true light. I thought it was very holistic, and it was very truthful, and they didn't distort anything that we said or take it out of context. And I thought they did it in a really respectful way. I was really grateful for that as someone who was participating in the process of being filmed.
I was wondering how you selected your subjects for the film.
How could I not? I started the process. I thought it was going to take a really long time. There's a lot of young women out there, and I thought it would take a very, very long time, and it actually happened very quickly. We talked to several people from families with children from China and different parts of the country, and there was a woman up in Northern California who knew Fang. She introduced me to Fang and said, you've got to meet her. I know she's your girl. And I said, okay, that's what everybody says. And then I met Fang, and there's chemistry. You just feel like, okay, yes, you are coming with me on this ride. And then there's the other organization where the girls traveled to Europe. I spoke with a woman who had started organizing that, and she introduced me to the rest of you three, to Jenna and to Anne and to Haley, because in the beginning of that group, they were putting together what they called teen ambassadors. So they were young women from around the country. And that was a really important thing for me in making this film, was that I wanted to show a real diversity of experience, of life experience, a diversity of geography, where the girls are from in the United States. I really wanted to show that there's no one way to have the experience of being adopted, just like there's no one way to have an experience of anything. So I purposefully wanted to find young women from across the country.
Any other advice that you could give to parents like us who have, children who've been adopted from Asia and don't live in we live in a very kind of white society?
All right, well, as you could probably tell, I grew up in a really white society. So I can really relate to that. I think I was definitely one of the only Asian kids in my school, maybe like one of two or one of three, until high school, which I was a day student at a boarding school, so that had international students and whatnot. But in terms of like elementary and middle school years, What I'd say is just exposing your kid to a lot of different sights and sounds and flavors, especially because when you grow up, those foods that you're used to kind of stick with you. And you can definitely tell in college when people say, hey, do you want to go out for dim sum? Do you want to go out for Thai? The kids that got used to eating those types of foods young, it's a lot easier for them to like integrate back into the Asian communities as young adults and adults if they so choose. I think it's kind of weird to point to food, but I guess that's what I'd say.
Well, I had a totally different experience. As I say in the movie, I grew up in very liberal areas. I mean, I call Berkeley the liberal mecca of the world. So for me, I would say exposure. It's sometimes it's scary for parents because I'm not a parent yet, but I know from my mother's experience that it creates insecurities sometimes because you're afraid of losing your daughter. You're afraid of losing your child to another culture that she's also a part of. And for my mother to expose me to such different things, and I think that that's what Jenna was also speaking to, it's giving your daughters a choice. They may not choose that when they get older, but present them with that choice. For example, my mom forced us to speak Mandarin at home. One word of English, nope, don't even think about it. And now I have that language and I have the choice to go back to China, and I choose to go back to China. But I know that some other children from China might not, and but whatever they choose, it's because they had that choice. And I really, if my mother was here, I would thank her again and again for giving me that choice. So that's what I would say.
Given your trips back to China, and our daughter is 6, we're going to take her back in 2 years, what advice would you give, having seen what you both have seen, on that trip back with an 8-year-old girl in mind?
First of all, I really applaud you for taking her back, especially when she's younger, because the younger you are, the less prejudice and fear you have. It's not to say that she's not going to be afraid, but I think the time to take your daughters back or to expose yourself to something new is now. It's not tomorrow or next year, it's now. And I really, really, really applaud you for that. And in terms of having a good experience, I'm a firm believer in you making your experience good. And the first time it might not be so easy because it's a new culture, it's a foreign culture, and China's crazy. I mean, America's crazy, but China is crazy. And crazy good. But I would say that, take it slow, but be really encouraging of her limits and her boundaries, but also at the same time saying, here, like, why don't we try this? Because this will be a bonding experience for both of you. And so even though she might feel uncomfortable in certain areas, I think as a parent, and as a companion, it's an older sister's job and a father's job to guide her in a way that she feels safe, but also comfortable in her culture, in our culture.
I just wanted to say first that the first time I went back to China, I was 10, and I'm going back to China this summer, which will be my 5th time. But kind of looking back over the past decade, these various trips to China, there is definitely a clear progression. And that the first time I went, our family went on a tour called China Ties, and it was a homeland tour specifically for kids who are adopted from China going back to visit. And I think what was nice about that as a way to approach the country initially was that it was very structured, it was very safe, and in a way it was quite Americanized. But I think as a 10-year-old girl who was Americanized, like sometimes having the option of like having French fries or like sitting in an air-conditioned bus going from like the Summer Palace to the Great Wall was a really safe and comfortable entry for me. And I think had I not had that initial experience, it would have been a lot harder for me to transition into more complex things, such as living with host families, volunteering in my orphanage, looking for birth parents, things that are like heavier like that. And I think the other thing that's important to emphasize is that going back to China could mean a variety of things. It could mean tourist stuff, it could mean going to the orphanage, it could mean going to the finding spot. And I think kind of differentiating those for the child and saying, hey, look, here, we have choices. Like, what do you feel comfortable with? Just like what Fong was saying, respecting their limits. I think that's a good place to start.
And there's for all the books that you've read, I don't know if you've seen From Home to Homeland, but a really incredible woman named Iris Chin-Ponte, who they both know also, who's a child development expert, and she edited this book, and it's a compilation of articles from child development experts and psychologists, as well as parents and children who've done homeland tours. And the advice and the ideas that come out of that are really, really, really helpful, of mixing touristy things with the other things, and building in down days, and marking on the calendar when you're coming back home, which I never thought of, which I thought was really good. So, but it's a really terrific book, so I recommend that. Yes, right here.
Yeah, my daughter is 7, and she seems like very comfortable and adapted to being here. And she hasn't really asked much about her biological parents or anything. And I'm wondering if there's a general stage or age that kids start to think more about that, or generally kind of want to know more about that.
From what I can tell, that there's not really a set age, and I think every kid is different, and I think some of it also comes from how comfortable you are not talking about it all the time, every single, but it's being able to talk about their adoption in a comfortable way so that they can feel comfortable bringing it up to you, that it's not like, ooh, we don't talk about that. So,
like Linda says, every child is different, and for me, it was the moment I was adopted, the moment I looked into my mom's eyes and realized, hey, you're my mom, but I don't look like you. But that's okay. It's okay. And the only reason I realized that was okay was because my mom told me that. And I was 5. Some kids don't start asking questions until they're 12. I tutor about 10 families back in the Bay Area, Mandarin, and the kids range from 3 years old to 15 years old. And the mother of one of the families asked me, she has a son from China. She says, he's 6, but he hasn't talked to me about being adopted. He doesn't want to talk to me. What do I say to him? I said, first of all, I'm not a therapist. Second of all, just because they're not talking about it, just because we don't articulate it to adults, doesn't mean that we're not thinking about it. Because it's hard not to realize, to look in the mirror and not realize that, hey, I have dark brown hair and I don't look like everyone. And to be seen, as I think Jenna's mother mentioned in the film, to be seen and to stand out, you can't ignore that. But sometimes you just don't want to talk about it. And my only advice is that you provide a safe environment so that your child, your daughter, your son feels comfortable talking about whatever identity they're struggling with, whether that's Chinese American or just being American or being Italian, whatever culture, just a safe environment where they can explore their identity.
I'm wondering about the response of the parents, with Jenna and Jenni, and how they felt about you being involved in this film and not knowing what might ensue from it.
So, all 8 parents, is that what it is? All of the parents were so wildly generous and trusting, and I think part of that was we magically all found each other. I think that from the work that I'd done before, that they thought I did quality work, but I'm an adoptive mom. And so I think that there was some level, and I was very clear that I don't make reality television. This is not about the car crash. This is an honest look at this experience, and the first interviews that I did with everyone was with the young women, and we all met and said hello, and they met the crew, and we did everything, and then we would go into their bedroom and close the door, and that's very, very, very trusting. Maybe you're crazy, Peggy, and I did that purposefully because I wanted the girls. We needed to develop a relationship, and we needed to have their trust. And if I had talked to the parents first, then it kind of would maybe create a different scenario and a different comfort level. And what are the parents talking about? And what are they going to ask me? And can they trust me? And so it was really about developing levels of trust in all the different relationships. So incredibly fortunate that everyone reacted so positively and welcomed us so warmly all of the time, actually, and made us food. So thank you.